Hey, what's up, you guys? It's IAmTheLionRider. I hope you guys are all doing well. On today's episode of our Let's Build of the Roger Williams Park Zoo, we're going to be doing the majority of the Elephant and Giraffe Pavilion House, so the interior of both the Maasai Giraffe and the African Elephant exhibit. So, as you've been seeing in the last few episodes, I basically did an outline for the first bit of the house, but this is going to be the majority of the real meat of the house and like the details of both the inside and outside. This was probably the longest build I've actually had to do just because of the amount of details and stuff I've had, and so this video is going to be 16 times the speed and just pretty in depth. So basically, to start out, I just wanted to get the actual frame of the outside. So when you actually enter the beginning of the elephant house, there's basically a little outcrop or something, I guess, and it just has a little sign out front that says like Elephant and Giraffe or Textron Elephant and Giraffe Pavilion. And basically, it's a nice little area. It's got like a statue out front and stuff like that that I later on add. But it's just a nice little area, so I'm basically adding in the pillars right now. I add some detailing to the side. I'm looking for like the door because they have like a blue door with like a yellow trim, and you can see me adding that right now. And so basically, I'm just kind of getting the outside of the building all set. I change a few things, like right now I'm changing the height of the roof, and I change that a few times. Um, I was using a lot of Google Earth for the reference for the sizing of everything, as well as my own reference photos, and just to get the like size of everything right. And basically, I just had to like go in and estimate a lot for this build because again, I know what it's like from the guest perspective, but obviously the interior of the stalls of both the giraffe and elephant house I had to estimate based on what I can see and that sort of thing. And it's not 100% accurate. I know for a fact, technically this entire front area that I'm building right now should be at like a 15-degree angle, but for the sake of keeping everything to the grid of Planet Zoo buildings, I made sure to just keep it the exact same, like, 90-degree angle. And it's not really a huge deal, and I think it works out fine. So I'm working on the sign right now for what would go on top of the outside. So at first I used the basic Planet Zoo font. I'm like, oh, that's going to be way too big. Oh, I'll use Ricey's fonts, or I forget the other person. But I'll just use those fonts or whatever and just, make the signs that way. So I make the whole sign, I write like Elephant and Giraffe Pavilion or whatever. And then at this point I'm like, that's way too small. Never mind, I should use the regular Planet Zoo font. So I go back and I change it. So now it says Elephant Giraffe Pavilion. And just to have everything fit nice, I eventually have to move where the actual elephant and giraffe are located. And due to that, since the giraffe is like poking out the bottom of the roof, I don't know if you can see that, I eventually change it to the giraffe icon as well. So with all that done, I basically just I change the roof because I see on Google Earth that the roof is actually kind of a uh, slate roof or a metal roof or something of that nature. It's black though, I know that. So and basically there's some glass paneling and stuff. So this is where I'm starting to build the interior. Off camera, I change a lot about the interior. I didn't like how I had it in the actual episode. It's just not that detailed, and I wasn't really too thrilled with it. So I basically changed a lot of it. Obviously, the other issue I had was just getting the pathing system to look okay with the terrain, so that's causing some issues, such as like little bits of earth like poking out the sides, which I off camera like found some ways to cover it up, but I just had to, it was little things like that that I had to just kind of like compromise in favor of like getting it to actually work for Planet Zoo. So as you can see, I'm just basically making the railings right now, and just trying my best to like create something that is pretty passable for the actual interior. Normally this area is like covered in posters and stuff, and I tried my best to do that. Now, normally, if obviously, as many of you know, this is a modded series for the most part, and I could mod in a bunch of custom items for these interiors and that sort of thing to make them look okay. But I'm trying to limit the amount of modded decorations, just so that eventually I'm going to be able to post this on the normal workshop, the Steam Workshop, and then you guys can download it. And the only thing you might need to download if you want will be the animals. So I'm trying to limit the amount of necessary decorations that also need to be modded. So I'm using as many of the Planet Zoo props as I can to get around stuff like that. Past that, I'm just doing the fencing. There's a little glass fence right in front of both the elephant and the giraffe walls, just so that the guests, aren't, too close to the animals. Basically, that's where the keepers usually feed them and wash the elephants from. And I'm basically just trying to go in and decorate right now the giraffe part of the exhibit, because they basically have a wooden wall, and then there's a small little window where usually they keep the mail in the back, just in case, during the winter months when it's cold out, they basically bring all the animals inside. So past that, I'm trying my best to kind of match how the building works. Again, not 100% accurate. I change quite a bit about the layout and from how it probably should be, and I'm not super thrilled about that. I might still want to go back and touch it up, possibly in the next episode or something along those lines. But I think it works for now. It definitely has the aesthetic right. So now I'm getting onto the roof area. So the roof, like I said, was mostly based off of Google Earth references. So I was just able to go on Google Earth and figure out, what, the actual top of the building looks like. So there's this center kind of building tower in the area that's basically just a small pitched roof, and then it has basically vents on the side. So it's made out of what I can assume is some kind of basic tiling or something of that nature, wooden tiling or something that a lot of modern buildings have. So I just kind of recreate that using the East Asian planks, and then I go in and I make the vents, which I copy around a few times. Oh, there's also a little bit of paneling on the sides that I forgot. So I just used some of the primitive building pieces to basically add some white trim to the base. And now I'm actually getting to the vents. So I'm basically looking through all of my props that I can use and seeing what could work. I tried windows, I tried a few different things, but ultimately I settled that the best way to do it is just doing the East Asia planks. So they're probably my favorite object in the game, I'd say. So I basically just have a basic black background, and then I'm tilting the East Asia plank slightly so that it gets kind of that vent look of tile or layered or I don't know what you would call it, shapes or something. And at the end it looks like a vent. So I then just copy the whole vent around onto all sides, and then there we go. So back onto roof territory, I basically just keep building up the building the best I can, adding the roofs and changing the height of some of the roof area. And then there we go. Once I have that whole area, I start moving on to what are the electrical boxes and basically where all the mechanical stuff is that's on top of the roof. So this is where your gutters are and your vents and that sort of thing. So I try to detail it the best I can. There's a little white trim around the entire top of the building. And some of the building has different size or elevations. So I wanted to include that. So basically I'm just using Google Earth as my entire reference for what the top of the roof building pieces look like. So I basically just, map that all out the best I can. And then use those, I believe it's the white plastic trim, and just go along and kind of copy the patterning the best I can. So I'm just basically dividing up the roof every way I can, and then just doing a little bit of decoration on the outside. So over here, I'm actually adding a little bit of a behind-the-scenes staff area next to the giraffe exhibit. That's actually where there's definitely some elevated area there. I know because there's a door that you can see from the guest area, and it definitely does go up. Past that, I'm now moving on to the path area in the back to just connect it up to my existing path areas, and then, you know, just connecting it to the back. So now I am going to basically be modifying the electrical boxes at the top and copying those around. I'm adding a few of the little details and pieces I can. A lot of it is sort of basic, again, not functional of any kind, just because obviously I'm not able to get a super in-depth look at what these are going to look like, and frankly, since the guests and like most people looking at the actual zoo from even a game perspective, you're not really going to see much from the top of the roof. So while I wanted it detailed, it's not going to be a super advanced thing that I think you need to focus on all that much. But past that, I do try to get it to look pretty nice, and I add in as much as I could. So there's a couple of vents and that sort of thing. There's some wiring that I eventually get around to doing. I think I do it right about now. Yeah, so there's some wiring connected to some of the buildings that I can see on Google Maps. And I'm basically just connecting making these boxes plop everywhere just the best I can. And it looks like there's also some sort of piping and wiring which I'm kind of used to seeing for my job, so I'm kind of estimating stuff based on that just from what I do in real life. And past that, I added a back entrance for the elephants, and they escape. So if you see elephants in the background running around, that's just because I messed up and I let them escape. So I then basically, yep, this is where I work on the elephant side. So the elephant part of the exhibit, I basically used my reference images to try and get the most accurate depiction of what the elephant, interior looks like. It's not perfect. I'm not super thrilled by it, but I think it worked out okay. So now we're gonna try and move on to the stable areas and or I should say the guest perspective of the elephant and giraffe areas. So basically, much like the outside that had a bunch of fences for the elephants to not escape, same thing goes for the inside where they're taking a bath. There's a chain fence on behind the glass fence, and then obviously metal fences and stuff. So once again, elephant will never escape from the Roger Williams Park Zoo. And then past that, we're just basically making a few minor modifications to the actual interior. So I'm adding a few little details. So like I said, there's the kind of pathway that leads upstairs to what I can assume is either an office area or giraffe feeding area, something of those of that nature. I had to estimate. And I'm just placing down a few little props and stuff, like the hanging giraffe feeding toy, I guess. And now I'm finally just kind of try and round out this episode by doing the exterior. So nothing super complicated. There's a elephant statue that kind of recently got a renovation. It's normally sitting down. Obviously, the closest thing I can get in Planet Zoo was just to sink in the existing African elephant statue. If I want, I can possibly model it and make it a mod, but I think the elephant actually works fine for now. And then you can see me just going all the way across the map because I wanted to grab those bricks that I made way back in episode 3 or so, because the brick wall basically lines this entire back pavilion. And so that's pretty much it for this episode, guys. So thank you for watching, and in the next episode we're going to be starting on our North American section of the zoo. So stay tuned.